brothers, today we're talking about the Astartes units that GW forgot. This seems to happen literally every edition now, where for the entire edition, units are introduced that are really, really poor or really bad or totally unbalanced. So I want to talk about it today. I want to highlight this. I want to just ask you as a community, like, what can we do going forward to prevent this happening in future editions? So thanks for being here in this week's Tactics video, and I actually think this is a great problem. And one of the reasons that it is a problem is because sometimes people come into the hobby, they only have a small selection of units that they can choose from, and when that happens and these units get nerfed, sometimes indirectly, and that's what we're going to talk about today's video, it can actually be a really, really bad moment for that player, or even a group of players if they've all gravitated towards the same units. So I'm going to discuss rules or changes that have rendered some of the units obsolete in 10th edition, and boy oh boy, right, we have a list for Blood Angels. So nerfed units and units that have just never been good. So let's step through each one of them. Let's discuss why they were nerfed, you know, what changed that made them unplayable almost for Blood Angels, and then, you know, let's just have a talk about this, and I'd love to see your comments down below, because I really hate this, and this is why I make a video. Normally I'm trying to be very positive on the channel, and I think the one thing that I would like to come out of this video that is a positive thing is like a better solution for how we deal with these situations. And they arised in 9th edition, and they have arisen again in 10th edition, so I can only assume they will be happening again going forward. So let's talk about aggressors. 120 points for 3 guys with 3 wounds and no invuln save, right? Like, that alone just, like, does not compute with me. When you actually break it down, right, like, they feel way too expensive for, like, 6 strength 4 shots with no AP. I suppose 1 AP if you're shooting the closest target. They also have 3 Power Fist attacks, so you'll be hitting 2 times. So 2 Twin Link Power Fist attacks. Power Fists are only strength 8 these days, so into any armor, you're likely to get like 1 successful wound roll. They started the edition at 110 points. And there was a combo where you could add the Biologists, and in the Gladiator Task Force you could add Fire Discipline, and you could get them to have like lethal hits and exploding on 5s, and they could actually be very, very deadly, and this is why they got put up in points and nerfed. But Blood Angels were punished here, right? Like, they were never overly good in the Blood Angels detachment. Blood Angels players generally didn't even run these guys when they were 110, and they got put to 120. So, like, currently where Centurions are at like 150 points, they have more toughness, they have more wounds, they have a better save, they have more melee damage. Sure, you lose an inch of movement with the Centurions, but I think the Centurions just, if Centurions are balanced at 150 points, and I think they somewhat are, then these guys are definitely 10, maybe even 20 points too expensive for Blood Angels. Now, this is the interesting thing, and this is one of the things I want to highlight in the video, is like, these guys are no longer broken in Gladiator Task Force. I mean, they might be stronger in Gladiator Task Force, but they have since massively increased the points of the Biologists, and also massively increased and nerfed the Fire Discipline rule. So it's like 2 nerfs against the squad and the enhancement that we're making, or the character and the enhancement that we're making these guys good. So that's the interesting thing with this, and this is one of the things I want to highlight, is like, sometimes, so these guys were nerfed for an enhancement and a character that typically we don't even see in the Blood Angels detachment. Those things are nerfed, but these guys are left nigh on unplayable for Blood Angels. And I guess when this happens, they get sometimes left for the entirety of the edition. And now I know Games Workshop recently added a pip of AP to like a lot of knives, and have improved a bunch of unplayable or unusable Space Marine units. But I think we need a better way of like reporting, you know, like, okay, so all the cool combos that you could use with aggressors are basically killed, but these guys are still so expensive for the Blood Angels detachment. It does lead me back to like, should they have individual points for the Blood Angels Codex as opposed to a generic Astartes points cost? Because this is where it all stems from. Let's talk about Eradicators. They're another Astartes unit that again were being used in Gladius Fire Discipline. Lethal hits, exploding on 5s, rerolling all hits, crazy good, right? Went up in points again. And again, Blood Angels are indirectly punished, right? We don't see many Blood Angels players playing Eradicators. There was a few playing them near the start of the edition when they were a little bit cheaper. But like, without the stacking buffs they can get, you know, they are an anti-tank option, and Blood Angels do now need anti-tank, right? Because like our Sangre Guard don't really deal with tanks, our Death Company don't really deal with tanks. So you would think Eradicators would be in a good situation for dealing with tanks, bearing in mind you can reroll wounds and you can reroll damage, but like we just don't see them because Blood Angels were punished here and the points went up. Another thing that might be worth mentioning, and I want to mention that this is like sometimes Eradicators having the heavy keyword is almost useless for Blood Angels, right? Like it's maybe good in like one Space Marine detachment, but for Blood Angels, you're never going to be standing still with these guys because you want them to be within 9 inches. If you're within 9 inches of the enemy, they are shooting and killing and charging you. So the heavy keyword is kind of irrelevant. You're very rarely going to be ever able to stand still. So I feel like in my Blood Angels list at the moment, I need anti-tank. I feel like I can't include Eradicators, right? They're just not good enough. They just don't really work for Blood Angels. Again, like, it comes down to points, though, right? Like, 100 points for 2 Melta-Guns that hit on 3s and 2 Meltas that hit on 4s. But the problem is you wound on 5s. So statistically, from the unit, you're basically asking the opponent to make 2 saves, one of which will probably be a pass because it's usually on an invuln. So then you're just doing d6 damage. So 100 points to do d6 damage at 18 inches doesn't feel to me like it is worth it, bearing in mind how swingy d6 damage is. Okay, let's talk about the Gladiator Valiant, right? This launched this edition at 145 points, right? And it's now 160 points. So somebody somewhere must have been using a Valiant to good effect. However, from what I can see, it's just weak all round, right? Like, it doesn't really have any direct anti-tank fire because the twin-linked last Talon is only strength 10. Multi-Meltas, it has 2 of them. Sure, but they are only strength 9, so you're probably wounding tanks in armor on 5s. So for 145 points or 160 now, you have a weak glass cannon and 4 Melta shots. This thing lacks range, and honestly I think it's probably worse than like a Predator Destructor in every way, shape or form, right? So there is no, even if this was 140 points, right, which is what a Predator Destructor costs, I cannot see myself ever taking it over a Destructor, right? Like, the 1 more wound it has is meaningless. I would say a twin-linked Las Talon is definitely worse than 2 Las Cannons. And I would say the Multi-Malta is probably definitely worse than a flat 3 damage autocannon that can get 6 shots. That's dedicated for killing infantry, and let's be fair, the Multi-Melta has the same strength as the autocannon. Yes, it has a little bit more AP, but most of the time AP4 is going to be wasted into invuln saves. So I don't know who got this model punished. I'm assuming it was probably something like Iron Hands with one of their auras, but here's the thing, everybody I know has these Gladiator tanks magnetized. No one is running the Valiant. The Valiant is supposed to be the sort of mid-range one, right? You've got Lancer with 72 inches, you've got the DACA version of the Reaper, and we're going to come to the Reaper later in this video and talk about how bad it is. But the Valiant is a complete miss, right? It's been out for like 5 years now. In 9th edition, it barely got any play. I think I played against it 1 or 2 times. It was run by Iron Hands when Multi-Meltas were quite a bit better in 9th edition. In 10th edition, I haven't seen one. Maybe I've seen, like, I've played like 50 games of 10th edition. Maybe I've seen it once. I don't know. It frustrates me to no end when I have this tank. I painted it. I magnetized it. In fact, I have 2 of them. I have never even run them once. And that frustrates me to no end. And we're going to get to other units that frustrate me to no end. Like, if I've never run it once in 5 years, like what is the situation? I just don't get why they can be left for 5 years. Like, it's garbage. It's garbage. As Tony would say from my podcast, get it in the bin. Valiant, I don't know. Let's talk about Redemptor Dreadnoughts next. And Redemptor Dreadnoughts came in this edition at 220 points. They went down to 195. Iron Hands managed to get them nerfed back up to 210. And this is where I think we might need codex specific points, right? Because at 210 points for a Redemptor Dreadnot, no one is running them whatsoever in Blood Angels. Maybe there's a play in like Gladius with Gilliman or something, but like, it makes me sad, right? Because Redemptor Dreadnoughts were hot stuff in 9th edition. In 9th edition, the plasma was very good because it was strength 9, which, if you remember, in 9th edition, wounded most vehicles on 3s. Las Cannons were also strength 9 in 9th edition, and Las Cannons moved up to strength 12. For some reason, this plasma just stayed at strength 9 and got no buff. If this plasma had gone to strength 12, then I think the Redemptor Dreadnought would have got a good amount of play. And maybe I'd be willing to take it at 210 points if that plasma was strength 12. But without that, it basically means, like, this thing cannot kill armor unless it gets into melee. And probably with an 8-inch move waddling across the board, it's very infrequent it's going to get into melee. It lost AP and it lost its D6 plus 1 damage on the fists, so its fists a lot worse. Onslaught cannons are really bad this edition, because they have no AP on them. And the plasma, which I think was the main weapon you would take, D6 plus 1 is nice. That was, like, if I had D6 plus 1 last edition, that would have been great. Really happy they gave it D6 1. Really hate the strength they left it at strength 9. Because strength 9, yeah, sure, we wound Terminators on 3s, maybe against Death Guard we wound on 4s. But when you're paying 210 points for an armored unit, I feel like you need it to be at least punchy against enemy armor, right? Like, look at the Vindicator tank. It's like 185. It's been down at 175, and it can have like 10 plus strength 14 hits at AP 3. You know, the best thing this thing can do, I guess it could do like 7 strength 10 hits. I suppose you get sustained hits and stuff, but yeah, maybe it's like, I just can't see any combo, right? Because if you wanted to run 2 of them, they are super expensive to not have an invuln save on. Like, I generally hate playing models that are over 200 points that do not have an invuln save, because then you come up against a knight, like a castle or something, and shoots you with an AP 5 Melta Volcano Lance at like 80 inches. I think the Volcano Lance is D6 plus 8. So you have a 12 wounds and you're -1 damage. So basically, if they hit you one time with a Volcano Lance, you will not get to roll a saving throw. And if they roll a 5 or a 6 on their damage roll, you are instantly dead in 1 shot. That's assuming he only wounds you with 1 shot. If he wounds you with 2 shots, you're instantly dead anyway. So 210 points kind of feels bad. It's not got great toughness. It was nerfed here because Iron Hands / Iron Storm were using like multiple Tech Marines with that aura to get lethal hits. And I guess, like, if you give this thing lethal hits and a Tech Marine to give it +1 to hit, and then use Oath, and then use something else, I think there was another enhancement they had to get something like Sustained, or a stratagem to get Sustained. So if you do all those stuff, yes, it becomes very, very strong. And yes, maybe in that Iron Hands attachment, it is worth 210 points. But for Blood Angels, I think for me to be running this, I don't know if I'm running this at 175. Like, if you compare this to a Vindicator tank, I would take the Vindicator tank pretty much every day. I can't see a situation that I would run a Redemptor Dreadnot. And it makes me really sad because I actually have 3 of these guys and they're all fully painted, which is unlike me. Normally I don't have 3 of the same model and they're all fully painted, but they were very good last edition. They felt like the perfect fire support for Blood Angels. You ran like 3 Redemptor Dreadnoughts, you ran all your jump infantry, you pushed across the board. It was such a nice tactic. And that plasma was quite good because it was quite versatile, even though it was D6 shots, which sucks when you roll a 1. So I was really happy to see D6 1, but the strength 9 just doesn't make any sense. So yeah, I've played a single Redemptor 1 time in 10th edition, and it got 1 shot by a knight, of course, that had like AP 6. I don't know why there's guns in the game that have AP 6, but that is a thing that we still have. Even though Games Workshop said this edition is less killy, there are still guns in the game that have AP 6. And by the way, that gun has devastating wounds. to just roll, just put some more salt into the wound. AP6 makes no sense as well, because if you're in cover and your Armor of Contempt, which means you're a 2-up save, you're a 1-up save, you're a 0-up save, they hit you with AP6. Oh, I suppose you could get a save on a 6. But you're going to pay 2 CP to get a save on a 6? Are you hell? It's so stupid. Okay, next up, Terminator Assault Squads. God, Terminator Assault Squads have been garbage this entire edition. And I want to talk about them because the regular Terminators keep coming down in points, and I think they're okay. Like, you get 15 attacks from the 5-man squad with Power Fists, and they've got that cool Oath of Moment ability that lets you hit on 2s rerolling 1. These guys' ability sucks. It absolutely sucks. After you end a charge move, your opponent takes a battle shock test. Whoop-de-doo. I mean, I play Dante with his -1 battle shock, exact same rule, and what happens is once every 10 games my opponent fails a battle shock. So this rule is absolute garbage. It's not like it's just wasted paper here. It does nothing. Devastating wounds on Thunderhammers on paper, kind of, you know, cool. Thunderhammers, devastating wounds, that's nice. But you only get 3 attacks per model. So you have 15 attacks, and you only hit on 4s, which means you end up with like 7.5 hits. So statistically, if you do 7.5 hits, you roll like 1 and a quarter 6s. So 1 and a quarter 6s means, I said statistically you do about 3.5 devastating wounds. I actually think it's less. I think it's probably 2.5 if it's 1 and a quarter. Yeah, so you do 2.5 devastating wounds. Let me change that. I want to show you just how bad it is. We do 2.5 devastating wounds on a unit that's 180 points. Like, Jesus. Like, the Lightning Claws maybe seem like a little bit better because at least we get some attacks and we get some twin linked and we got 1 damage, so no one can like reduce our damage by 1 or something. But the Thunderhammers hitting on 4s is absolutely tragically bad. This is why you take the regular Terminators, because the regular Terminators hit on 3s and then they hit on 2s if you target your Oath target. So like the chances, you know, like that hitting on 2s or hitting on 2s rerolling 1s massively improves the amount of damage output you're doing over the tiny amount of devastating wounds you get. I think this is an interesting one, right? Because like they took Thunderhammers off everything, right? Death Company don't have Thunderhammers. Vanguard Veterans don't have Thunderhammers. There used to be a time in the lore where only Terminators could have Thunderhammers, and the idea was that they were big and unwieldy and they could only be wielded by guys, and it used to be called Tactical Dreadnought Armor. So why on earth are those the unit that's hitting on 4s when like Vanguard Veterans used to... maybe Vanguard Veterans did hit on 4s with Thunderhammers, I can't remember, but Death Company definitely hit on 3s with their Thunderhammers. They did give up their pistol, but let's face it, who really cares about the pistol? Yeah, I don't know. I think even if these guys hit on 3s with their weapon skill, I think based on I still think they are worse than the Firstborn Terminators. The Firstborn Terminator, like the shooty Terminators, like Stormbolter, Power Fist, Cyclone Missile Launcher, they have damage output. They have Power Fists. They just sync with better characters, I feel like. And they're cheaper. Like, these guys are so much worse. And they're more expensive. And yes, you can put a Storm Shield on them for an extra wound. Maybe that helps. Sometimes. You know, like, in the odd time you're getting targeted by autocannons, sure, that helps. But most of the time, Terminators are going to get killed by, like, Orcs with Power Fists. And guess what? An extra wound doesn't mean anything when you're fighting Orcs with Power Fists, because they're hitting you with 2 damage Power Fists, right? Like, or you're fighting Gaskell Thraka, who's just swiping for 4 damage. So again, one extra wound here means nothing. These are a terrible unit. I have heard a rumor that they will be getting made better when they have new models. Now, I hate that, because I don't think we should be penalising people that have previously bought and painted and spent effort on models just because they're getting a new kit in the future. Why couldn't they just have good rules now? Like, I hate it. I mean, sue me. I hate it. This is not my normal video. This is not my normal video style. I'm sure you know that. But I do not think that we should be penalising... I mean, unless these rules are just... There is something to be said that this was this was one of the first data sheets with the new codex, so it could just be a victim of, like, it was released very early in this edition. But then I don't even know if I buy that, because early in this edition we had Eldar kicking out like 20 devastating wounds with D cannons and stuff like that. So I think this was just a complete miss. And these weapon options are really, really poor. For the price you're paying for the unit, these guys are really, really poor. If you think about Blade Guard now, Blade Guard are 6 guys with 4 attacks each. For 160. So you're getting an extra guy. You're getting an extra damage per guy. So, like, if you did Lightning Claws versus Blade Guard, you get 25 Lightning Claws for 1 damage. You get 24 Blade Guard for 2 damage. It's the same strength, it's the same AP. So, like, and the Blade Guard are 20 points cheaper. And the Blade Guard have a good rule where you can reroll hits or reroll invuln saves. Like, it's bonkers. These guys are overcost. Like, if Blade Guard are 160, these guys would need to be 150. They are objectively worse than the Blade Guards in almost every single way. Toughness, maybe they could be the same 160 because they've got toughness 5, but I think Blade Guard eclipse these guys so hard right now. And it's so sad because Terminators are... Assault Terminators, Blood Angels essentially had really cool individual unique sculpts. We've all got them. We've all got them painted. And we're all waiting to play them. We just can't. So, if you're enjoying today's video, remember you can subscribe to the channel or leave a like. I do appreciate that ever so much. Let's talk next about Gladiator Reapers. Now, the Gladiator Reaper was a great tank, I feel like, in 9th edition. It had that twin assault onslaught cannon on top, which was kicking out like 24 AP1 shots, and then combine that with the bolters. Like, I think it got like 40 shots, if I remember correctly, give or take. 40 AP1 1 damage shots. It was super useful for Blood Angels. I liked it a lot for like just chewing any infantry, making space in enemies' lines so you could charge through them. And then this edition, assault cannons and Gatling cannons got devastating wounds, and spoiler, they are complete garbage. Nobody uses them at all. They do not have a good number of shots now since they became twin-linked, but the twin-linked really doesn't matter because you're an AP0. And I think AP0 weaponry is generally perceived as almost unplayable. I mean, like, look at what they just did with Space Marines, right? Like, Incursors, 0 AP. Scouts on their knives, 0 AP. The characters, the Reavers, 0 AP. Then Furnace Marines, 0 AP. All these 0 AP weaponry, no one was using. They gave it back 1 point of AP, and suddenly all those units have actually seen, not a ton of play, but they are actually see some play. And I think that this is the exact same problem. Like, I would give up the, like, I would happily give up the devastating wounds on those twin assault cannons and the Gatling cannons that we have to get back the 1 point of AP. I think those weapons would instantly be more meaningful. I mean, I don't even think the devastating wounds is powerful, right? Because you get like 1 or 2 dev wounds. So at the moment, the dev wounds is probably the only thing that actually does any damage, because most of the rest of the time people just hit it off their save. 160 points for 8 strength 6 wound rolls, because I factored out the fact that you miss a bit, right? So 8 strength 6 wound rolls at 0 AP gives you about 1.33 dev. Maybe you twin linked a few shots, maybe you do 2 dev wounds. So your opponent's going to take 2 dev wounds and 6 AP0 saves. So that probably means they take 3 wounds, maybe. And then you've got this, you know, 6 wound rolls at 1 AP. Yes, it gets more if you get within 12 inches. Spoiler, if you're within 12 inches with a Gladiator Reaper, you're probably getting chewed up by the enemy. You don't really want to be within 12 inches of the enemy with your tanks. I think it's horrible, which I'm really sad about, because I played a Reaper a lot last edition, and I felt like it was good. At 160 points, it's literally daylight robbery. Its rule, which is rotating death, which is like sustained hit 2 on the Gatling cannon if you target infantry. I think these sort of rules are just too one-dimensional, right? Like, we have, like, rules like this in the Death Company. Like, when we've lost a unit, you get sustained, you know, and realistically, no one's picking the models for these weird, edge case sustained rules. I think Rage-Fueled Warrior on the Captain is a really good analogy of that. Like, Rage-Fueled Warrior was 10 points. Some people were taking it. Quite a lot of people, because it was sustained 3 once per game. Went up to 25 points. A lot of people dropped it. Went up to 35 points. All the serious players drop it, right? Like, if you just have sustained 2 against one enemy unit type, right? So let's just say I'm fighting I'm fighting knights. This rule never comes in play. I'm fighting beasts. This never rule comes in play. You know, like, so it's like when you give a unit these really focused rules, and I think I sort of understand there's definitely a thing with Primaris, or there's definitely a thing with like modern 40k, where Games Workshop want to like pigeonhole units into this unit does one role. Guess what happens? Nobody takes it. Everyone takes the multi-role unit. And I guess a good example of that is like what I was just talking about earlier, like Redemptor Dreadnots. I guess Redemptor Dreadnots are good at killing elite infantry, right? Like, they've got a plasma cannon and they've got a 3 damage fist. Here's the thing. A Vindicator tank kills armor, elite infantry, and anything else it wants to, because its weapon is good against multiple things. What do people take? The Vindicator tank, right? So unless you're going to remove all those units, which, I mean, could happen, probably will happen eventually, but then you're going to create imbalances, because the second any, you know, like, use the Silent King, for example, right? Like, if his weapon is good against 2 or 3 different things, then people are just going to always take the Silent King, right? Like, I feel like you can't fix that. But I think what you can do is not pigeonhole units into this one situation where, like, I mean, like, honestly, 9th edition, I played this tank all the time. I honestly can't even remember what this rule was in 9th edition. But thanks to the power of the internet, we can go back and see it was 150 points, had Ballistic Skill 3 up, had 12 wounds, so most of that stuff is the same. The heavy cannon was heavy 24. I don't even remember what heavy did last edition. Heavy weapons. You subtract 1, like, infantry. So you're just getting 24 shots, that's what I said, and then the rapid fire is still good. Look at the ranges. It had 6 more inches of range. I did not remember that. It had 6 more inches of range on those Tempest bolters. So this is why it was good. It didn't have any special rule. Like, it literally had none. Oh, well, it had that repulsor field stratagem, which was like, if you got charged, you could make, for 1 CB, I think you could make the enemies -2 to charge it or something like that. That was the special stratagem for repulsor field. Grav Pulse. Yeah, you could make the enemies -2 to charge, and you could also fall back and shoot. Yeah, that was it. So it was an expensive strat though, right? No, just Grav Pulse, 1 CP. Fall back and shoot, -2 if the enemy wants to charge it. So, like, so the base tank itself, it was just good, right? Like, it was just 40 shots. At more range. I guess this was why it was good, right? And then last edition you had the auras, so it was kind of easier to get, you know, rerolls to hit, or +1 to hit, whatever you want to talk about. But yeah, so we've gone from what was a great tank to a really bad tank now. Let's talk about Dreadnoughts next, and this is this probably is the final time you're going to get to run a box knot in Warhammer 40,000, because if these guys do not get legends in 11th edition, I will literally eat my iPhone. Like that, like, you know, they're going to be getting legends. I feel like there's no real reason that they kept this unit around, beyond just saying, like, we didn't legends all the box Dreadnoughts, because Blood Angels obviously got our Death Company Dreadnought, the Furioso Dreadnought, and the Librarian Dreadnought, all legends, right? Now, this is an interesting one, right? It's 135 points, so it's 5 points cheaper than the Ballistus. Bear in mind, the Ballistus just went up recently, so before this was 5 points more expensive than the Ballistus. So 5 points either way. You have 1 less last cannon shot, you have 1 less toughness, you have 4 less wounds, you have a worse missile launcher, and you have no rerolls baked in, and an aura that lets infantry make a reroll of a 1 within 6 inches, which is often rendered useless because you probably Oath of Moment or use your detachment rules to get some sort of rerolls, or you've attached a character to get some sort of rerolls. So, I suppose the one thing it has is its last cannon is twin-linked. But I honestly think one shot twin-linked is worse than 2 shots with potential rerolls from the ballistas. So this thing is just like toughness worse, wounds worse. Do you know what? I forgot to mention movement worse. Everything is worse. I guess it's cool that it can take a fist. Like, its profile for the fist is the same as the Redemptor Dreadnot, but then I guess you've got to give up the missile launcher. So I guess it can... I don't even want to say it can do 2 things, because it's got one friggin'... You're paying 135 points for 1 las cannon shot. This unit may have well... I said, this unit may as well have gone to Legends in 9th edition, because I've seen exactly 0 people play them in 10th edition, right? It launched this edition at 155 points. Rest in peace, glorious Boxnot. Your time in the sun has come. You could put a multi-melt on it, like the multi-melta that we used to have with the Furioso, but the multi-melta, 2 shots from a multi-melta is definitely not worth 135 points either. I don't know. I mean, I haven't seen anyone play them. I don't know why they didn't get Legends. Oh, P.S. Definitely do not give it the assault cannon, because that is even worse. Like, statistically, you do 1 devastating wound, and then the opponent has to save, like, a few times at 0 AP. Like, oh my... Like, this thing is horrifically bad. I don't know. I have love and respect for these, and I have a bunch of metal ones. I picked this one. I picked this photo off Google image search. So if this is your Redemptor, this is your Dreadnought. It looks cool. I love the old school Furioso banner. Anyway, I want to next talk about this old community article that was posted on the GW site. Do you remember this article? It came out the 24th of July, 2023. So in the summer of 2023, and I've zoomed it in a little bit, and it says, "Fans of Firstborn Space Marines should know no fear, though. Contrary to heretical whispers in the noosphere, they're not being erased from the 41st millennium. The new Space Marine Codex will include plenty of non-Primaris units. If that's your preference, tactical squads will still be driving around in rhinos, fighting under the covering fire of Devastator squads, and so on." So, let's talk tactical squads. I haven't seen them in 9th edition. Sorry, I hadn't seen them in 9th edition. I hadn't seen them in 8th edition. I actually don't know if I've even seen them in 7th edition. Maybe. I think ever since Intercessors were released, like, I cannot ever remember seeing tactical squads. These guys' rules are also horrible. 140 points. You can't take them cheaper than that. And their special rule is you get to combat squad the 2 squads of 5. So if scout squads are 70 points and have a super cool strong rule for scoring in guerrilla tactics, these guys are 70 points for essentially no special rules. They have bolt guns, which are tragically bad, no AP. Like one guy, the sergeant, I guess, could take a Thunderhammer. If he does, he gets 2 attacks hitting on 4s, so he hits once. So a 1 in 6 chance of doing those big whopping devastating wounds. I actually don't think I've even seen a single Rhino, and I think I've played well over 100 games of 10th edition, and I've been to tournaments, and usually when I go to tournaments, I know people at the tournaments, and I walk around all the tables, and I look at all the armies, and I don't think I've seen a single tactical squad or a Rhino. I haven't seen one for like 10 years. Like, I'm not even joking. Like 10 years. So like this article about them staying, it was, I don't know. Honestly, they serve no purpose. I guess if you want to get 10 cheap toughness 4 Marines in power armor, sure. This is the cheapest way you can get 5 Marines in power armor. But I mean, it's a pretty freaking low bar, right? Especially because you have to take them as the 10. I would always find 10 more points to take intercessors, or 5 more points to take assault intercessors. Like, there is no point in taking these, or just use their points and take scouts, because at least scouts get like I think 3 attacks at AP1 now with the knives. So here's the thing, I reckon in terms of damage output, a unit of scouts with knives, bolt pistols and knives, will actually out-damage these tactical marines. But remember, if it's your preference to have your army backed up with those tactical marines and rhinos, so be it. You know, like, you're not going to win any games of 40k, but I guess you can get to put them on the table. I don't know, man. Next, let's talk about Land Raider Crusaders, right? And I feel like I have a Crusader, and I would like to field it, maybe. But it's 220 points for bolt guns. You know, you get a twin assault cannon, thumbs down. You get a multi-melta, thumbs down. You get 2 hurricane bolters. Oh, yeah. No. You get 2 hurricane bolters that are twin linked but 0 AP. So, like, all its weaponry is really, really bad. It's 220 points. It has been coming down in points. It actually launched a fair bit higher. Obviously, it has that deadly assault cannon and 12 bolter shot. Like, an assault cannon and 12 bolter shots for 220 points. I've said this unit will pretty much always do more damage with tank shock than all of its other weapons combined. The transport capacity of 16 is also pretty useless, right? Like what combo can you fit in here that you can't fit in the Redeemer's capacity of 14? Because, like, that was something that I was looking at when I was making this video, right? Like, let me just change the size of that text so it can actually fit on the screen. That was my fault. Sometimes I move the text when I'm making the slides so the text doesn't wrap around behind where I'm sitting on screen. But, like, the 12 in a regular Land Raider, the 14 in a Redeemer, the 16 in a Crusader, these were designed years and years ago, like 10 plus years at least, right? Like, I feel like it might even be longer than 10 years at this point, maybe like 15 years. I do not remember playing. So I came back in 7th edition, so I've been back in the hobby for like 10 years. I don't remember transport capacities from when I played like 2nd, 3rd, 4th edition, and then 7th onwards, right? But I do know these transport capacities have been around for a very long time, and I think what I wanted to highlight was, like, imagine if this had been 18. Then you could have put like 6 Centurions in it, right? Like, that would, like, maybe I'd be willing to spend 220 points, because his weapons are absolute rubbish, right? Like, I think we can all agree that this thing kills nothing but, like, aspect warriors or guardsmen. And even then, it doesn't kill that many of them because you've got AP0 for the most part on all the guns. You know, like, if it's like guardsmen in cover, they're still going to actually save, like, a bunch of shots here. So it's killing nothing. Transport 14 capacity is interesting, right? Because 14 lets you put, like, that squad of 6 Gravis plus a character. Because that's 14 capacity. Terminators plus a character is 12. The only other thing I could think of is, like, Blade Guard. So you could do 2 6s of Blade Guard, 2 characters. That's 14 again. So I really can't think of anything that can really make the use of the 16 capacity. I suppose you could say, like, 2 squads of Blade Guard and, like, a lone op. Maybe. That might be something. But, like, if it had been 18 and you could have put 6 Centurions in it, and the Centurions could use the like, a cheap transport for 6 Centurions, that could have actually been really, really meaningful. But, like, certain things, like edition through edition, just don't seem... It seems like we can't change these things. And I don't really know why we can't change these things, because this tank was designed so many years ago. Like I had the Crusader, like, I was talking about being out of the hobby since 7th edition. I had the Crusader back in 4th edition. So at this point, this tank was designed 18 years ago or something like that. 18 years ago, bolters were pretty good. 18 years ago, assault cannons were pretty good. 18 years ago, multi-meltas were like... They were like your best anti-tank weaponry in the game, right? There was a time in Blood Angels where you just run like crap loads of attack bikes with multi-meltas on them. Back when multi-meltas only had 1 shot. Didn't even matter. Just attack bikes with multi-meltas were really, really cheap anti-tank firepower. So yeah, I just wanted to highlight the The Crusader, I haven't seen a single Crusader played this edition. I've seen Land Raiders, I've seen Redeemers. Anytime someone puts a Crusader in the list, I'm just like, why? What you know, it is a joke to say it will do more damage with its tank shock than its weapons, but it's actually the truth, right? Because you're going to roll 12 dice and every 5 up is a mortal wound, so you're going to statistically do four wounds. I don't think your assault cannons and your bolters and that one shot of a multi-melta is particularly going to do anything more than 4 wounds. 4 wounds would be a good number to get from that shooting, because honestly that shooting is kind of garbage. So I would like to see the Crusader change to 18. Not that we'll be seeing crap loads of people. It'll be an edge case. 1 or 2 people have 6 Centurions. It'll let them do something cool with the Centurions we haven't seen before. I don't think it changes much else, right? Like, there isn't any other combos you could have put in there. Like, Gravises usually come in 6s. Blade Guard usually come in 6s. Terminators usually come in 5s. So literally the only difference between 16 and 18 would be Centurions. I guess you could do 18 would let you do 9 Gravis, a 6 and a 3. That could be cool. Or 6 aggressors and 6 Blade Guard. That could be cool. 18 would actually be cool. Like, this could get some play with a tiny little change. Okay, and like, look at it. I literally went and grabbed my Crusader. I actually have my Crusader modded with some 3D printed flamers, so I can run it as a Crusader or a Redeemer. But there's 3 Centurions on top of it, right? And like I said, these rigid limits were designed like 10 plus years ago. Could they do with a review? I think probably. And then remember, if 12 Plague Marines can fit in a Rhino, 6 Centurions really doesn't seem that much of a stretch. You could easily fit like another Centurion base here, another Centurion base here, and then you're literally only be overhanging a little bit with 1 Centurion base, right? Like, if you can fit 12 Plague Marines in a Rhino, you sure as hell can fit 6 Centurions in here. Fire Strike servo turrets. What a lot. I want to try and be more positive. I feel like I've been too negative in this video, but I did go back and look. I literally bought a Fire Strike servo turret in October 2020. So that is 5 years ago, or like 4 years, 8 months. I haven't played it yet. I'm hoping to play it at some point. I mean, I've looked at it a bunch of times. Like, I've made my list. I've had a few points at the end of the list. I've thought, could I fit a Fire Strike turret in there? And then I've thought, there's better things for 75 points. You're going to get 2 shots from the pseudo Las Talon, twin-linked, and you're going to get 3 shots from the twin-linked autocannon that has 1 AP. The weapons in themselves are actually not the problem. Like, maybe the problem is the 3-inch move, or maybe the problem is the points. Like, 150 points for 2 of these? Why would I not just run a tank that can move 10 inches and has more firepower and has more toughness? Yeah, I mean, I think they're too expensive. Their Overwatch rule of hitting on 4s is cool, I guess. But I don't think anyone owns 2 of these. And I don't think anyone can find 150 points to put 2 of these into their list. I just think, I'd like to play them. I think it's a cool idea. I think it's a cool home field objective type idea. I just don't get it at all. I just can't see with a 3-inch move, because with a 3-inch move, you can barely even have them behind a wall and move out and shoot, right? And with the firing lanes that we have these days, maybe if the weapons had assault, I don't know, man. I'm not even going to cover the Hammerfall bunker for. I mean, that isn't really a 40k unit. That's just someone decided to make a bunker and it's a bit of fun. This at least is a unit, and it looked cool, right? Like when I first saw it, I was like, oh, a little turret unit like that would be pretty handy, right? But just like, no, I guess. Yeah. So in conclusion, why did I make this video, right? Like, I do appreciate that recently we did get a well-received update for many Space Marine units, right? Like, we got Pip of Knives on a pip of AP and knives and flamers, and that gave some massively underutilized units some badly needed help, right? But I wanted to make a video and talk about like the fundamental problem of when a unit gets a points nerf or a hike because of like a problem from another detachment that then makes that unit useless in our detachment or our sub-chapter, I guess, right? It's a giant feels bad moment, right? When a unit that I am using is taken away from me because a combo that I cannot even access is overpowered, broken, or niche. And that's happened, I think, with the Aggressors, that's happened with the Redemptor Dreadnots, and I would like if there's a better way we could deal with this. I'm not entirely sure. I mean, maybe, like, a points decrease for specific detachments. We could have a call-out of it on, like, the MFM. So, like, Redemptor Dreadnoughts are not 210 points for Blood Angels, they are 180, or something that would actually get them on the table. I would also like GW in the future to try and remember some of these targeted tactical nerfs, right? So, for example, when they nerf the biologists and when they nerf fire discipline, they should remember that that was linked to eradicators and aggressors, and those units took penalties, and now those units cannot be used to get those bonuses. So, shouldn't they come back down to points where we thought they were okay? Like, no, they just get left unplayable with too high points. And, like, there's no timeline. Like, we don't, as a community, we don't know any sort of timeline. We just know, like, for example, let's use Aggressors, because Aggressors are an interesting unit. When they first came out in 8th edition, I think it was 8th edition, if they stood still, they could shoot twice. It was a very powerful rule. It rewarded, like, high skill play. I really liked them. In 9th edition, they were absolute garbage. Nobody played Aggressors at all. For the entire edition, I think. 10th edition, they came back. Again, they had, like, a cool synergy shooting rule. It got nerfed, and then they're useless again. So it's like, I just wish there was a better way than saying these units are just useless for years. Desolation Marines are a good example as well, right? Like, I didn't cover them in this video. They are getting some niche play in certain detachments at the moment. But, like, Desolation Marines came out. I got to play them in 2 or 3 games. Within a month, they'd had, like, 2 or 3 points jumps. Again, it was Gladius that was abusing them with fire discipline, I think. Or it was something else. Like, it was another. It was nothing to do with Blood Angels. It was a non-Blood Angels detachment that was abusing them, and then they're left. They're just left at 200 points for 5 guys, like a toughness 4 Space Marine at 200 points. Like, they are more expensive than a Playburst Crawler, for 5 guys with 2 wounds at toughness 4. Like, it's a bit bonkers. Okay. So if you want to play any of the units on this list, obviously you currently can, but you are essentially disadvantaging yourself. In my opinion, this does 2 things, right? Like, leaving these units where they are. It disadvantages new players who bought the unit because of the rule of cool, right? Like, we often see new players, they walk into the GW store at the weekend, they see something that's cool, they're not familiar with the rules, they buy it, they go to Reddit, they're like, hey, I just bought this thing at the weekend, and everyone's like, yeah, dude, you just bought dog shit, right? You can't play that. Like, if you want to play seriously, that unit is useless. So it adds frustration for new players that have spent the money and they're left with units that are, you know, like, poor. And I mean, one of the things I do on the channel all the time is make videos to try and help people build armies and stuff. And it feels generally really bad where I'm like, oh yeah, dude, you can't use Desolation Marines. I know you bought them. I'm sorry, you just can't use them. And sometimes that lasts for multiple edition or years. And I wish there was a better way for us as a community to let GW know about stuff like that. I don't know what the ultimate solution is, but I think there should be one. And if there can be something positive taken from this video, because this video is probably going to feel like a giant rant for me, that's what I would want to bring, right? Like, give us a way as a faction or an army to say, like, this unit is just not clicking. I just sit here and make YouTube videos and tell you what I think. I like to win games. I like to go to tournaments. I like to compete. And if I can't compete because I feel like the units are not good enough, then I just flat out won't use them. I'm not a fluffy player. Neither are my friends. And my friends and I have great rivalries that have been going on many years. So I can't. I'm not going to ever take a fluffy list to a tournament. Unless I get to a point where, like, I don't know, I've won 3 tournaments this edition, I feel like I did everything I need to do, which never happens. Then I'm not taking a fluffy list. I'm trying to build strong competitive lists. And there's more. Like, this is just the tip of the iceberg. There are other units. Cough, the Death Company Dreadnought. That unit is utterly terrible. But, like, my point is, like, how do we let Games Workshop know that in a meaningful way? Because at the moment, it just feels like, okay, we've got a unit that nobody is playing. No one's even considering it. Our win rate is actually really bad at the moment. So how can we tell them that this unit is just missing the mark, right? So that's why I made this video. But I put the slide here to say, I don't really know. You know nothing, Jon Snow. I'll just give you my opinion. So thanks so much for watching to the end of the video. If you did enjoy this video, then last week I actually made a video that had like a big PDF spreadsheet that will help you calculate unit damage in the midst of your Warhammer 40,000 games. So like while you're playing the game, you could print the spreadsheet off, you can very quickly look at it, and you can pretty much inside like seconds work out how much damage your unit's going to do to the enemy. So that's there if you want to watch last week's video. If you want to support me on Patreon, I would love it. If you want to buy any Warhammer models here in the UK from Element Games or from America from Wargame Portal, if you do that via any of the links in the description, or even if you buy on Amazon from the links in the description, you kick back a couple of bucks with every purchase of the channel. I so do appreciate that. Thank you so much for watching to the end of the video. I hope you guys had a great week. If you got future ideas for tactics videos, leave them in the comments. I try my best to answer most of the questions, and I try and make videos that the community wants to see. So, by the blood, are we made strong? I'll see you next time, brothers. Peace.